I think we're at 5 o'clock, so we're going to start, and I'm just going to do a few intros. Welcome everybody to the Academy of Cheese is hosting this cheese and chocolate pairing afternoon, early evening. Our patron and training partner, Savencia L'école du Fromage. We have Noemi from there. Give us a wave, Noemi. And she's the one with the mystic twinkling candle. And Naomi is going to be talking about the cheese. We have Luke up in the top left-hand corner, who is from Valrhona.
Good evening, everybody.
Very fine French chocolate brand. And we also have Sasha from Valrhona, who is the sales manager for UK and Ireland.
Hello, everybody.
Now, we have two very, very clever ladies as well with us. So we have Laura, who is going to be translating from English into French, if anybody wants to listen in French and practice your French skills. And we have Camille, who is over in Chile, who has joined us. It's now afternoonish with her, and she's going to interpret into Spanish. Now, how you get that by clicking on the globe at the bottom of your screen, and you just tick which language you want to talk in. As I've said before, if you're in the chat, please, if you want to talk to all of us, you need to tick all panelists and attendees. If you would like to ask questions and answers, there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screens, and please do add questions in there, and if I can answer them, I will. If I can't, we'll take them to the panelists at the end, so Sasha, Noemi or Luke will answer those for you, but we'll do that at the end of the session. Okay, so welcome everybody. No, without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Sasha, Noemi first, I think, isn't it? And she's going to tell you a little bit about Savencia, L'école du Fromage, and the cheese.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tracy. Thanks for that great intro. And really glad to be here for that challenge in a way. So yeah, introducing myself. So obviously I am a cheese lover, cheese passionate. But I would also describe myself as a risk lover, which is why I'm here tonight. So I am maître fromager from the Guild of Cheese Association and cheese educator of L'École du Fromage from Savencia, UK. My French origin, as you can hear with my accent, did had an impact on my cheese career. I was born in the Alps, which is a region where you can't really not like cheese, and I then decided to study food engineering with specialization in cheese, starting in working in French factories, and I then landed in South America, where I built the School of Cheese, L'École du Fromage of Savencia, for Chile and then Argentina, and Colombia. And it's 2 years ago that I decided to move back to the old world and keep this project, keep doing cheese education, now with the École du Fromage of Savencia, UK, and with this great partnership with the Academy of Cheese, where we train, educate level 1, 2, but also many different aspects of the cheese for professionals and cheese amateurs. So Savencia, for those who don't know much the company, we are a sum of small or medium dairies and factories which are dedicated to produce authentic and traditional cheeses, very unique brands all over the world. And here in the UK, Savencia is distributing these cheese throughout the country. And the École du Fromage is the support service to provide education around it. And tonight, yeah, let's try and pair these two iconic cheese. And to do so, we couldn't think about a better chocolate than Valrhona, and I think Sasha will be able to make you a better understanding of this great company.
Thank you, Noemi, for this perfect transition. So hi, everybody. My name is Sasha. I'm the sales manager for the UK and Ireland based in London. And as you can hear, as Noemi, I'm French too. I'm very happy to be here with you. I really hope you will enjoy the time spent with us to have a great tasting chocolate cheese and an amazing and surprising pairing as well. Before to tell you more about Valrhona, I will let Luke introduce himself.
Yeah, so good evening, everybody. A little bit similar to Noemi, I'm usually working with chefs across Northern Europe, so the UK and Ireland, plus I go across to the Nordic countries and the Netherlands, helping people work with chocolate better, right from small artisans up to quite large factories sometimes. I'm also a member of the Academy of Chocolate here in London, so I judge a lot of the chocolates and bonbons when we can here. So big chocolate lover on this side.
Chocolate lovers, this is perfect. So just before we start the nice part, let's say the tasting properly on the chocolate side with Luke and on the cheese with Noemi, I will tell you a bit more about Valrhona in case you don't know this brand. So as you can guess, it's a French manufacturer based in the southeast of France, nearby Lyon, for those who know where is Lyon, in a very small city called Tain-l'Hermitage. And basically, our creator is a pastry chef. His name is Albéric Guironnet. And in 1922, he founded the chocolate factory called La Chocolaterie du Vivarais, which is located in the main streets of Tain-l'Hermitage. So you can see his picture on the top right of your screen and the Chocolaterie du Vivarais on the bottom. One thing which is very important for us is that Tain-l'Hermitage is alongside the Rhône River, so the biggest, largest river in France. And this was very convenient at this time to get all the ingredients from the exportation, especially for us for the cocoa. And to give you an idea, in 1947, we changed the name of the Chocolaterie du Vivarais for Valrhona. And Valrhona means something, actually. It's not just a crazy idea. It's a contraction of the Rhône Valley, in French, La Vallée du Rhône. So in case you need to remember this, this is where our brand name comes from. And basically at this time, Albéric, the creator, was doing chocolate bonbon. So what you can see on the left side of your screen. And one who was very famous at this time was the Rinette, so praliné with chocolate on top. Absolutely delicious. And this one was a favorite one from Alberic's daughter, actually. And if we switch to almost 100 years after this period, you can see that the factory, the chocolate factory, is still there. Actually, we didn't change the factory building establishment. So yeah, you can see in color nowadays. The Rinette is still there as well, still handmade in the factory and still very popular. Maybe one thing who has changed is our logo. As you can see, it's much more modern now. And also, we are doing much more couverture, much more chocolate than before, high quality chocolate. And we improve our way to source the chocolate and the way, our sustainable way to work with the planter in the plantation all over the world. So yeah, this is a quick one on Valrhona brand. And to give you an idea of what you can find in some supermarket here in London or on some website across all the UK, you can find some chocolate bonbons, such as the Renette I was mentioning before. So very tasty, perfect for Christmas gift, let's say. If you prefer to cook, and I'm sure you, for some of you, have received an hamper with that, we have our home baking range with fève inside. So really easy to use, very convenient, and with recipe also on the packaging. So if you need any tips, you can find this very easily. And one part also is for the gourmet lovers, chocolate in bars or in squares as well. Easy to to eat and absolutely delicious. But actually, Luke will tell you much more than I do on the chocolate tasting. Luke, the mic is yours.
Yeah, so we're just going to address if there's any skeptics along this evening. Noemi was already describing chocolate and cheese as a challenge, which, to be honest, it was in a way, because as a chef, you get to a point as a chef, I think, where you get very good, and I find myself very good normally at what we call mental tasting, which means you don't necessarily need to taste ingredients together. You can taste something and you can imagine. I think sommeliers are like that with wine. They can drink a glass of wine and they can imagine eating the lamb dish to go with the wine and things like that. So you get very good at mental tasting. With chocolate and cheese, that wasn't the case. There was some things that I imagined which didn't work, and other things that I really had to pair well. But chocolate, like I said, to address the skeptics, chocolate in savory cooking is not a new thing. You've got the famous Mexican mole, which has been around for hundreds of years. Sauce Grand Veneur, the hunter's sauce, in France is always finished with a little bit of really dark chocolate to enrich it. Scallops with white chocolate is quite a modern classic. I used to work around 10 years ago, I think it was now. I was working up at the Chester Grosvenor with Simon Radley, a very underrated chef in this country. He's had a Michelin star for many years. And when we had the tasting menu up there, rather than going from main course directly into dessert, we would always use the cheese course as like a transition. So we would have sweet elements in the cheese course. So you might have pickled celery, but like sweet comfy celery, or walnut ice cream to go with the cheese. And then that was like your transition from your sweet savory into the sweets before we presented the pre-dessert of the menu. Another example there, you got Jean-Paul Hevan. Jean-Paul Hevan is one of our customers in Paris, and he's been producing the box of chocolates that you see there. All of them have cheese flavored centers, and he's been producing those for, I remember him launching those, I think it was it's going to be going on for 18 years or so. So absolutely, chocolate in savory is a historical thing, and cheese in patisserie, it's not new either. So we're going to start off nice and gentle, a fantastic chocolate that's got many fans around the world. If you don't know it, then you're about to join the fan club, I'm sure, because everybody loves this one. Dulcey Blonde, it was the first blonde chocolate, so it's become almost a new category. Legally, it's a white chocolate. What was happening in talking about white chocolate, and one white chocolate that we'll come on to later on in the course of this evening is Ivoire, which is our classic white chocolate. And a lot of chefs 10 or 15 years ago were baking that. So Dulcey, effectively what the Valrhona factory has done is used caramelized milk powder to replicate the baked white chocolate. It's got really nice biscuit notes, dulce de leche. It's really Moorish. Tracy's been letting on before that she's been eating it this afternoon. She couldn't stop, you see, that's because of how Moorish it is. It's very versatile in pairings for desserts. So if you're cooking at home with this, with coffee, it's fantastic. With yellow fruit, a couple of my favorites. Fig is another one, which is going to come into play in our pairing. Fig with this is very good, but I say it's a bit of an all-rounder. It will go with a lot of things. So we really like this chocolate. So you can taste it now or wait for the pairing, up to you, because we're going to hand over to Noemi. And Noemi, you've got a cheese to taste with this.
Sure, I have a cheese, and I would say we'll start with the less risky of the pairing evening. So we decided to start with this soft ripened cheese, the Saint-André. Saint-André is very nice because it's actually already reminding a little bit the aspect of a cake, where we have this nice coverage, and the small high shape, reminding a small cake. But the Saint-André is interesting because it's triple cream cheese with this velvety rind, and it's almost announcing already with the aspect that it has, announcing the silky and creamy texture of the cheese. So the velvety surface is quite interesting in that cheese, and it's characteristic of the penicillium mold in the soft ripened cheese family. So it's actually the development of the mold that will give this almost a cat hair. It's really thin, but really velvety, and it's like the spores of the mold that we can appreciate on the rind. As I said, it's a triple cream cheese. What does it mean? It means that during the process, we will, on top of the milk, complement with some cream. So cream previously selected for specific characteristic that will go very well in the process and allow a really creamy texture, as we said. This cheese is produced in Normandy, and it got inspired from another category of cheese called Brillat-Savarin. Brillat-Savarin, it's a denomination protected of origin of cheese, and it's got the same characteristic, but it's made in Normandy. And actually, Brillat-Savarin was invented by a pastry writer, a food pastry writer, that developed this style of triple cream cheeses. So I think that's a nice idea to start with. Here I cut a small piece where we can appreciate a very almost white base with some ivory color, and a very lactic aspect and creamy aspect already. Luke will definitely display this cheese in a more pastry way. What my proposal is going to be, as long as we go, is to just display the cheese and chocolate as you can do at home on the cheese board. So for this one, I will unwrap it, and the suggestion will be to cut it in the half. So if you have this kind of tools, perforated knife, it's always useful to avoid the paste to stick to the knife. So I will cut it in half, and with my top height, I will then cut it literally as if it was a small cake, and I will do 8 portions out of it. 8 portions this way. And then just to give a little bit of a tweak, I will turn upside down, one out of each pieces, so it gives a little bit of design. So that's how you can display it on the board. Now I'm excited to know how we're going to do to incorporate the chocolate in it.
Okay, so you mentioned Brillat-Savarin, and Brillat-Savarin, a lot of chefs have used that for cheesecake over the years, so we're actually going to make a cheesecake base with the chocolate. So what I've got is, first we want some biscuits. You could use a digestive for this. I did the test last week with a digestive, but it will, firstly, I think it's a little bit obvious, and chefs, we like to be a little bit more creative than that. And also it's maybe a little bit strong. So you managed to source, Naomi, these fantastic biscuits here, like an oat biscuit with some walnut in. I have to say the walnut really comes through. It really works a treat with this. So I've got the biscuits. If I was doing this in a
Thank you
restaurant,
very much our partner, the Fine Cheese Company, who had a great biscuit proposal and allowed this to happen as well.
with that walnut, it really comes through. It really works in this recipe, so it's really fantastic. Yeah, I've crushed the biscuits down, and say if I was doing this in a restaurant or for a large quantity, I would be putting these into a machine. I've got a KitchenAid next door. But what you can do, just for a few, I've got a little bowl here, just crush them up with a rolling pin. Some of that's gone totally to dust. Others, there's still pieces. That's going to be interesting. It's still going to have some variance in the texture. So don't worry about getting it too uniform. It's going to be an interesting texture. Then the Dulcey chocolates. I've got the Dulcey chocolate, and Sasha mentioned before, we've got the new range of 250 gram bags here. So you can buy the chocolate now just as the chefs receive it, which is in, I'm a long way from my camera, but you can see it's a little, what we call a fev. It's got a bit of a V shape, which a lot of people assume is for a corporate reason, V for Valrhona, but in actual fact, it's so that it's easy to melt. The center's a little bit less thick than the rest of the fev. So when you melt it, it melts easier. I've melted that in the microwave. Go steady. If you're melting Dulcey in the microwave, you do need to be careful because it's already cooked. Remember I described before. So you do have to be careful on a very low setting. Otherwise, this is in a Pyrex bowl, so you could just pop that on a warm pan of water and use it like a bain-marie. So I've melted my chocolate, and all I need to simply do is add the biscuits in. And basically, so effectively, we call this in the trade, we call this a sablé pressé, or a pressed shortbread. But I say to chefs even that haven't seen this method before, it's like making a cheesecake base, but using the chocolate rather than butter. And what the chocolate does rather than butter is it coats the biscuit. And then when it sets in the fridge, the biscuit is going to be totally coated by the cocoa butter, and it will stop it from getting soggy. So whereas a cheesecake base, by tomorrow it would be starting to get soggy, this will stay really nice and crisp. Plus, of course, this is for a canapé. The idea was Christmas is around the corner. We're going to make some canapés, so you want to be able to pick this up. The best thing to set this in, if you've got plenty of time on your hands, you could get a little round cutter and mold them by hand. That's probably the safest way. Chefs are quite impatient, so I want to mold. The best thing to do would be to get a silicone mold, but I don't have one. So I've stolen, this is a miniature mince pie tin. I've stolen it from my wife's cooking cabinet. So all I'm going to do is drop the biscuit mix in there. And what we need to do, when I say drop it in, I did say it was pressed shortbread, but we do need to be careful. If I press it too hard and get rid of all the air, then it will be very hard. When you try to eat it, it will be difficult to eat or it will break. Equally, if I don't press it enough, it won't stick together, and your guests won't be able to pick it up as a canapé. So it's finding a balance. The tricky thing about using this mince pie tin is that, and the reason I said that a silicone mold would be better, is that when I set this, I'm going to pop those in the fridge now. So I'll put them there, over there in my imaginary fridge. If I leave those now for 5 or 10 minutes just to start to set, and then lift them out, because if you leave them too long, they'll stick to the tin. And the way that I know that is because that's exactly what I did at lunchtime and wrecked about 24 of them. So if that happens to you, break them back up, put them back in the bowl, put them on the lowest setting in the microwave just to soften it, and you can mold them again. But that's why I said a silicone mold would be better. I don't know if you can see that now, but what I've got now is it's basically a reformed biscuit. So I'm back to having a biscuit, but it's crumbly. It's held together by the chocolate. So the chocolate's going to bring some flavor to that, but it's also going to keep the crumbly texture.
Yeah, so I followed Luke's instruction. I just templated the chocolate, and a simple way as well to do it is you just display the chocolate on top of the cheese and try. Yeah, so at home right now, if you just taste a little bit of the Dulcey chocolate with the Saint Andre, see what you think about the tasting. And then if you like it, we can get you the recipe just to make these little canapé bites ready for Christmas. So I'm just finishing those off. For me, this pairing almost reminds having a cheesecake, but more intense, like an intense
Yeah, like that.
cheesecake with chocolate coverage. It's really, really interesting.
And that's perfect then as a canapé because it's giving you all those flavors, but just in 1 or 2 bites. A perfect hit. What's missing for me there? I mentioned it before. Fig works really well with Dulcey. Perfect for Christmas. Just to finish that off with a little bit of dried fig, but I forgot to get some yesterday. Ready for this evening. So little slice of dried fig on there for me would really top that off. And you've got the walnut coming through from those biscuits. So it's a really nice balanced bite.
It is definitely a Christmas winner.
If you can't quite see it there, then we've got a photo from, if we go, just going back to the presentation, little photo there, that I did in the daylight, and then you can see it a little bit better. So yeah, just a reformed biscuit, a little bit of the San Andre on top, and like I said, for me, perfect for Christmas would be a little touch of dried fig on the top of that would really set the pairing off. That's the recipe.
Yeah.
Just the recipe for these biscuits there, I've used the same weight of biscuits as I did the Dulcey chocolate and just melted and combined them. And it was the same with digestives last week. If you use a different biscuit, you might need to play slightly with the ratio. What I would say is don't add all the chocolates at the same time. Keep a little bit back and just adjust it. You don't want too much chocolate. You want to just bind the biscuit back together.
It is, and just before we go to the next one, I think it's important to remind kind of guidelines, because when we talk about pairing, there is not really universal rules. It's much more personal thing, and every pairing can be right. There's no right or wrong thing. But when we do pairing, we focus on the organoleptic aspects of food, of the chocolate and of the cheese. So we will use 3 important criterion of these organoleptic aspects: the texture, the aroma, and the taste. And what we will look is that between the 2 products, we will find a certain harmony between texture, aroma, and taste. So a harmony can be either complementary texture, aroma, and taste, or harmony can also be contrast between this element to create a certain explosion of the flavors. The main point is to enhance the flavors of both products. The idea is not to hide any of the product, but enhance the characteristics. If you do a pairing, but you feel that one product overcome the other, then it's probably not the right pairing. So these are a few guidelines that may help. Always think about texture. Are these texture complementary, or are they contrasting and giving a nice sensation in the palate? And same about taste. The taste would be much more what we feel on the tongue, and aroma is the general flavor sensation. So yeah, just a few guidelines is never too much. And yeah, so next proposal. If you are still on board with us, is one of the best cheese of the world. The Ossau Iraty, or Esquirou, is coming from the Basque country, and it's been awarded the best cheese of the world in the World Championships contest in Wisconsin in the US in 2018, so 2 years ago. And it's really really unique. It's part of the PDO Ossau Iraty. Ossau Iraty is a PDO from the Basque country, southwest of France, and the Basque country is really renowned region for its shepherd and sheep tradition. It's a region where pastoralism is used and the tradition for hundreds of years, and where the actual grass that will feed used to feed the chips is providing the unique characteristic of this cheese. But the Esquirou especially has got specific washing on the rind. It's got as well a minimum of 6 months maturation that really create some toasty caramel and almost roasted notes that makes this cheese very give it an interesting identity, and you could potentially recognize the Ossau Iraty amongst different the Esquirou amongst many different Ossau Iraty. So it's quite an interesting cheese. In terms of texture, it's at the same time firm but also smooth in the palate. It's got this characteristic yellowy color. We are in presence of sheep milk. Sheep is a rich milk that will be also interesting in terms of flavor development. When we talk about rich milk and we talk about the fat in the milk, it's what really provides the aromatic flavor. What we call the lipolysis, which is the transformation of the fat during the maturation, will release the flavor. So when we have sheep milk, it's going to be quite interesting style of cheese. And for those who've been in level 1, we're talking about a hard cooked cheese. So where we scald the curd, we press it, and we then allow a longer maturation. So, and in terms of texture, we have kind of a challenge here because the cheese is got its firmness, as we said, and yeah, I will let Luke explain us what chocolate did we think could balance that.
Yeah, so thank you, Noemi, for this first, because actually I wasn't aware of this cheese before we started this journey, and I really like this one. So this is a new one for me. It's fantastic. Noemi just mentioned there on the slide, it's traditionally paired with cherry jam because they got this kind of fruity nuttiness in the cheese. So straight away that drew me to, there's a couple of chocolates that we have called the Andoa range. The Andoa range, they're fair trade and organic certified. They're from Peru. And they're really fruity. So it's the fruitiness that I was looking for to work with the Ossau Iraty. The dark version is extremely intense. It makes great brownies, but it's not going to work here. So what we've zoomed in on is the milk version. So the Andoa lay, the milk version of these two chocolates, and it's the dairy notes, subtle, delicate dairy notes, and it lets the fruit come through to work with this cheese. As a chef, just as a note, to have the two chocolates, it's quite unusual to have two chocolates with the same flavor profile. So you've got a milk and a dark, and we use these a lot, building cakes so that the inside of a cake might be predominantly milk chocolate and a dark chocolate mousse to finish. And because they work harmoniously together, so it's very interesting using these pair of chocolates. But as Noemi alluded to, actually, when I first tried the Ossau Iraty, it was this firmness that I was struggling with to get it to pair with the chocolate. So how do we get something to work with the chocolate? Because if you put too little chocolate or the chocolate's in small pieces, what was happening is the chocolate would melt or disappear first, and then you're still chewing on the cheese. So what I've done again is using the bar would do it, but what I've actually got here again is the fèves that we spoke before, the cooking range. And what I'm going to do is cut them into 6. It doesn't need to be exactly 6. It's just to give you an idea of what kind of size I'm looking for. So a ½ centimeter chunk, perhaps, I could say. If you've got a bar, then cut it into little ½ centimeter chunks. If you have the fèves from the cooking range, then cut them into 6 pieces. And then all I simply did, the way that we found that this would work the best, is laying on the top of the cheese, I put 3 or 4 pieces. I don't know if you can see that on my camera. Again, like I said, I'm quite far from my camera. So all I've done is I've put the chocolate on the top of the cheese. And what we're doing here is we're working with the textures. So by keeping that chocolate a little bit chunky, it means that as you bite it, you bite the chocolate and you bite the cheese, and it makes you chew together and work the two together in your mouth. And it's in your mouth that the two find the balance.
Yes, this cheese has a shape that makes it very easy to cut. You just have to follow the shape and get these small triangles that you can display on your board. And this is actually quite a nice one, because you just, as Luke said, you just display them on top. You engrave almost the chocolate on top of the cheese. So I'll get this one for my cheese board. Quite easy to copy you, Luke.
Okay, perfect. So if you give that a go at home, yeah, it's simple. It's just cut the cheese, but keep the chocolate. When you cut the chocolate, just keep it into little tiny nuggets or chunks of chocolate, just so that they don't melt too quickly, and you get there. So again, going back to the picture that I took the other day, just in the daylight, so you can see it a little bit better, a bit closer. So that is how we can use that as a nice little canapé, just using the traditional cuts with a few pieces of chocolate on the top to eat with it instead of the cherry jam.
This pairing almost reminds me the cherry jam. The cherry jam pairing that is a very classic pairing in the Basque Country, actually. It's very common on a cheese board to have either a jam or chutney with cherry. And because the cheese will reveal the fruitiness of the chocolate, we almost kind of find this very classic pair. And definitely the chunky texture is what makes, again, the texture of the cheese and of the chocolate balanced quite well on the palate.
Well, you said at the start, Naomi, a bit of a challenge, but yeah, I think this one was, but we overcame it. So we've got this one nailed.
It is. Wow, we're now going to another classic. I don't know if you have an idea. I was thinking, because when we think about cheese consumption in the UK, we generally have an average of cheese consumed per capita of 12 kilo approx. I don't know if we have these data for chocolate, Luke. Do we know how many chocolate? Okay, that's very interesting, as the cheese is growing, definitely growing, and the blue cheese that we have here, the Saint-Agur, is definitely a blockbuster of the UK habits, I would say. And the Saint-Agur, again, is very classic from France, from the Auvergne region. It's been produced for more than 50 years in the region of Auvergne, in a small village called Beauzac, and it's produced only with Montbéliard cow. Montbéliard cow is a special breed, which is very interesting in the protein level and protein type that will give specific aroma characteristic to the blue cheese. And again, in the Auvergne is almost the region, it's in the center of France, and it's almost the region where the blue cheese style was created. And when you have the whole cheese board from Auvergne with different cheeses from this region, the Saint-Agur is one of the most recognizable, where amongst hundreds of different blue cheese, you can recognize the Saint-Agur because it's got a very unique profile. And for those who haven't got the level 1 yet, small reminding of the cheese. How do we get that blue mold on the cheese? Simply by perforating the cheese. What the mold really needs to develop is oxygen. So that's why for this type of cheese, we will perforate the cheese. So we allow the oxygen to enter and the mold to then recover the cheese. And this is where we got this bluey, velvety aspect. Saint-Agur have a hand sorting process. So every single wheel is sorted by hand and is matured during 10 weeks. And this makes the recipe different and the unique aspect of the cheese. The Saint-Agur is generally known for being a contrast balance, a contrast between sweetness and intensity. It's very creamy. It's got some sweet notes, but at the same time, so we can allow the cheese to be formed. There's salt, and this contrast is another important aspect of the organoleptic profile of the Saint-Agur. So I think we are now getting to an interesting stage of challenge because the most classic pairing for blue cheese and for Saint-Agur as well is to use white wine because not white wine, sorry, sweet wines, late harvest wine, like Riesling variety or Sauternes variety. Why? Because it's so intense that any other wine will just be lost and just overcome by the cheese. So that's why it's in the sweet wine that we can find the right contrast, the right balance. So now, when it comes to chocolates, this is where things are getting more complicated.
Well, yeah, you say complicated, but it's the intensity you talk about, Noemi, and this is where I mentioned at the start of the presentation that chefs are normally quite good at pairing in our heads and imagining how things would work. But this one, like I said, this is one example where I was wrong because I always assumed that the blue cheese is going to need dark chocolate to stand up to that intensity. But actually, if anybody tuned in, we did this pairing on Instagram live during the first lockdown with Charlie, and it was Charlie from the Academy who gave us this idea that works really well of using a white chocolate rather than a dark chocolate. And it's just as Noemi was talking about then, it's about mimicking the sweet white wine by using white chocolate. So we've got a couple of white chocolates that we could use in the Valrhona range on the screen here. The first one is Ivoire. Ivoire is our classic vanilla-led white chocolate. This is the one that chefs used to bake. If you remember, I was talking earlier, before we created Dulcey, that chefs were baking this. It's got a really fantastic creamy texture that when you're cooking, it really transfers into your cooking. So you get really creamy panna cotta type feeling from it. So a fantastic classic white chocolate. If you've got that at home, because I know on the Academy of Cheese website, we just said a white chocolate. So if you've got that one, it's fine, it's going to work. I've actually gone tonight though with the Opalys. The reason I'm going with the Opalys is purely because it's in a bar and it's how I'm going to use it. I'm going to grate it. Opalys is a modern, I call it a modern white chocolate. It's paler white. It's led more by the milk powder, the dairy aspect than vanilla. So it's got more milk powder, less sugar. So it's a fresher flavor, and chefs are really turning towards this white chocolate as a less sweet option, so it lets the other flavors through. But like I said, either of them will work with this. So this is a pairing for anybody joining late in the year. It's one that we discovered live online. We're going to do the same again. So what I've got is just a standard cheese grater, and I'm just going to grate the cheese. You'll notice I've got quite a large bowl here, quite a high-sided bowl. The reason for that is when you grate chocolate, you get quite a lot of static energy. If you're not careful, you end up with chocolate everywhere. So that's just one little tip for at home. So if you're going to grate the chocolate, get it somewhere nice and high, or if you've got a work surface protector or something you can grate onto and then scoop it back up. So I've grated my chocolate there into the bowl. And all we're going to do simply for this canapé is I've got a teaspoon. You probably want the Sanegur out of the fridge for maybe 10 minutes first, so it's just got a bit of condensation, and I'm going to take the Sanegur and just drop it in, and effectively it's like making a truffle. So I've got the chunk of Sanegur cheese, and it's just rolled in the white chocolate to make like a little chocolate truffle.
Nice. And it's good, Luke, that you mentioned the temperature of the cheese. Generally, when we have cheese with molds, they need time to kind of regenerate and to develop. So we will tend to take them out of the fridge about half an hour before we actually will eat them, so they can get some air, some temperature. Again, air and temperature will allow the molds to regenerate. And what's interesting with the blue cheese is that generally when you just take them straight away from the fridge, the color of the mold will be almost light blue or light gray. But as you leave it develop after a few minutes, then the color becomes actually quite stronger and quite darker. That's an exercise you can all do with many different blue cheese. Take them out of the fridge and then see how the mold evolves. I'm just going to copy you simply here. So the blue cheese, a nice thing to do on a cheese board, you can just display the entire piece and leave close to it a tasting knife. And if you have the chance to have nice oak biscuits as well, it's really nice on a board. And here I'm just going to copy you this way for the cheese board, which is, I guess, working as well to just grate it on top in case we don't want to do much more preparation or just have it with the entire cheese. Is that correct?
Why not?
Good.
Okay, so we've got 3 of our pairings. If you've tasted it on the home, hopefully you're enjoying it. So that was the third one. Just as I said, all I've done is simply break the pieces off. You could vary the size depending on the ratio you want as well. I'll talk more about that in a moment. And then just rolling it in the cheese, rolling it in the white chocolate, and then, as I said, when I said 15 minutes from the fridge, it was just about getting some condensation. So of course you could leave those out now as a canapé for as long as needed before the dinner party. Okay, so the final pairing or the final chocolate is Manjari 64%. This is a fantastic chocolate. It was Valrhona's first single origin. It was launched in 1990, so it's the 30th year of this chocolate this year. And that probably explains why it's 64%, because we talk a lot about now about 70% chocolate. Actually, it was Valrhona who introduced the first 70% chocolate in 1986, but it was considered very bitter at that time. So I guess if we were making Manjari today, it would probably be a 70% or more. But in those days, they probably included a little bit more sugar just to make it a bit more approachable. But it's the approachable nature of this chocolate that makes it work with cheese, because some chocolates that I tasted, especially Valrhona's chocolates, are very powerful. And some of the chocolates, when I tasted them with cheese, the salt of the cheese seasons the chocolate, and it made the cocoa very overwhelming. You tasted the cheese disappeared, and you had a really intense cocoa hit, which really lasted in your mouth. But this chocolate Manjari is much more approachable. It's got a delicate red fruit acidity. It's coming from the soils. It's just like a wine coming from the soils. And believe it or not, in the 1980s, the acidity of this chocolate was considered a defect, and it was actually Valrhona who saw the potential. But 30 years later, Madagascar now is considered one of the best cocoa origins in the world. It's really prized. But I really firmly believe that this chocolate is part of the reason for that. Something that bothers me slightly on the slide is you've got a green packet and a pink packet. It's a little bit unusual because when I work with chefs in kitchens, this comes in a green bag, and in the retail packaging it's pink. But that will be fixed next year because the retail packaging for the bars will be. That's why the retail packet for the fevs there is green, and the bar will follow next year. So if you're looking for this next Christmas, then you're going to be looking for a green packet for the Manjari too. So that will be all fixed, and I will be at ease. Something interesting, Naomi was talking about the approach to tasting with cheese. Our perspective as a chef, I would say, we have a class in I work for the Valrhona school, and we have something we call one spoon. And the idea is if you can get once you've got a good flavor pairing, you can use it for a plated desserts, for gâteau, for afternoon tea. It's about finding the perfect pairing. And the way we kind of approach a dessert is to have a main flavor, a secondary flavor, and an accent. And for example, the Dulce cheesecake that we had before, I would say that the San Andre is the main flavor, and the Dulce became the secondary flavor, and the fig that I proposed to put on top would become the accents, just to highlight and make them work a bit more harmoniously. And I would say, going through these pairings, a lot of them is led by, either we led by the cheese. The Ossau Iraty in front of me here is the predominant flavor with a little bit of chocolate on the top. Same with the San Agur, it's predominantly, you're going to taste the San Agur with a little bit of chocolate. For the last pairing, we're really leading with the chocolate. So it's more about the chocolate, and the cheese is highlighting the chocolate, as I described. So what cheese have you got, Naomi?
Well, I have another very interesting one. So this is the Petit Berthaut. It's a very small format. It's 60-gram cheese here. It's a cheese belonging to the Wash Rinds cheese family. It comes from it's an innovation that was developed imitating the classic Epoisse, another PDO from Burgundy. The Epoisse is actually the cheese, and Burgundy is the region where we developed the washing of the rind process. The Petit Berthaut is actually named after the Berthaut family. And Berthaut family is the family that saved the Epoisse process. Because during Second World War, many farmers and many cheese makers and Epoisse makers had to stop completely the production. And just one family kept doing it by the women in the farm, the women in the houses maintain the processes of washing the cheese, and this is what the family Berthaut done, and after the war really brought back to life the cheese and fought to get for this cheese a denomination of origin, a protection of the name, because Epoisse is also the name of a small village. And there's a specific unique process that we find in the Epoisse and also in the Petit Berthaut, which is the fact that at the end of the 9 washing process, so it's during 5 weeks of maturation, we're gonna wash the cheese by hand with the yeast and with water. We're gonna literally pass all over the cheese so that we can develop this color and develop this moldy texture on the rind. But at the really end of the process, we're going to submerge this cheese within Mar de Bourgogne brandy, which is a spirit distilled from wine. And this Mar de Bourgogne will, as it's alcohol, it will allow the cheese to dry and not be that wet over the cheese. So the submersion of the cheese in the alcohol will allow the rind to dry and also apport and bring some nice characteristic to the cheese. We are here with a cheese that has quite a strong body. It's rich again, and it's got some meaty notes on the palate. It's got this saltiness again that is characteristic of the Epoisse and of the Petit Berthaut, but also it has some dried fruit notes. So it's a very complex cheese with strong texture, strong aroma. Of course, if you just smell this cheese on the external rind, you will feel mainly the farmyardy notes, very animal taste notes, and then in the palate you got this rich body with meaty taste. So very complex cheese, and that's why I think with Luke we decided to make the chocolate the strong one and just use a tweak of Petit Berthaut to kind of enhance the bitterness and the saltiness of the cheese.
Okay, so I just saw Tracy making a note. So anybody, if you have any questions, because this is the last pairing, so we'll just do this one, and then if you've got any questions for us, then do get them into the question and answer now. The Valrhona bar, we're using a bar here of the Manjari, and you'll see it's scored. So it's very easy to break into little pieces. They're our canapé sized pieces. And all I'm going to simply do is, and again, choose your own balance of how much chocolate and how much cheese do you want to put onto the top of the chocolate. But all I'm going to do is put 1 or 2 pieces on each piece of chocolate. And like I said, it's the salt from this cheese which is going to kind of season the chocolate and enhance the chocolate flavors and really bring those cocoa notes out. And there's that little acidity in the washed rind that's going to work with the acidity of the Manjari chocolate too. And like I said, the Manjari chocolate being a little bit approachable, when that salt does season it, it takes it to a really nice level of cocoa, but without being overbearing, and it doesn't overpower your other canapés that you've got here. How's that, Noemi?
Amazing. That was not that risky. It's yeah, it's really nice. And again, I can really say that in this pairing, we don't lose any. They're both quite strong. So when the cheese are strong or chocolate is strong, it's really tricky to find a pairing that will match. And here, because they're both very have a strong character, let's say. They're working well and they are imposing themselves and behaving. So we really get in the palate the explosion of both the Manjari and the Petit Berthaut. Yeah, and on the cheese board, this one generally I put it with a spoon because it's very creamy inside. So you can almost have 1 spoon in it and a couple of spoons around, because it's you can really feel the creaminess. So just by spooning it, you can have this cheese. It's really a good way to use it because it's so creamy and melting due again to this long maturation. So yeah.
Super. I can see that we've just turned exactly to 6 o'clock. So if we
Wow.
just do a quick recap of the canapés before we got any questions and answers from people to finish up with. So just a little recap there from the top. So if you want to give these canapés a go coming up to Christmas, you got there at the top, the Manjari 64% with the Petit Berthaut. That's the one that we just tasted right now, at the top of the picture there. Agur, simply rolled in the grated Opalys, or could be Ivoire, but Opalys will be easier on your fingers because it's in the bar format. Ossau Iraty, remember we studied that with the Andoa lay because of the fruitiness to match with the cheese, and studying it to match the textures up to get that working. And at the start, we started with the Dulcey Blonde, nice and easy, the little intense cheesecake hit for a canapé using the Saint Andre. and I said that I would go for a little bit of dried fig on there just to cap it off if I remember to buy some. So that was just a little recap before we go to the questions. Any questions there?
I think
Yes, please.
I think we're good. I've been answering the questions as we've been going along, Luke. So I think we're okay.
So what's the feedback then? Was there any feedback about the?
Well, to be honest, everybody is going mad for your cheesecake.
Okay.
That just sounds divine. I love the idea of mixing the chocolate in with the biscuit crumbs. Fantastic.
Yeah, as I said, it works really well because it will set in the fridge and the biscuits will stay crispy for several days. So
I think it's going to go on a lot of Christmas
Christmas or New Year, and you can do it that little lull in the middle of Christmas and New Year. That's the time you can settle these biscuits in the fridge and then keep them in an airtight box, and they'll be fine for New Year.
And what would you pair drink wise with that, other than champagne? Of course.
I'd say I was waiting for this. I was thinking this earlier. What do you think, Noemi? We didn't discuss drinks, but yeah, I did think there was two things that struck me.
Isn't it?
Yeah, there was two things that struck me earlier. I was thinking about it and I thought champagne is obviously, especially pre-dinner. If these were canapés pre-dinner, then champagne's the obvious one because it works with both sweet and savoury. And I suppose after dinner, you're going to go with the ports. Do you think, Naomi? Because again, it's going to work with both the cheese and the chocolate. That was just two drinks that I came up with earlier in case we got the question.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree that champagne can be quite a good match for this one. Potentially as well, you can go for a Chardonnay, but a Chardonnay more from the old world, Californian or perhaps Chilean Chardonnay, because they are generally more malolactic. They have more kind of lactic and buttery development. So specifically for the dessert gourmand, the cheesecake, I would recommend as well a Chardonnay, which will remind this very buttery notes of.
Yeah, and it would cut through that sweetness, wouldn't it? Right, we've got another question from Shelley. Thank you so much. We loved the experience. Our favourite was the blue and white chocolate. Wasn't expecting it to work so well. What else could you do with the Epoisse? It's such a strong flavour.
What else could you do?
Yes. What other things would you pair with Epoisse?
So
I just love it on its own.
We're talking about food or drinks or no?
Either.
Either. Okay.
How would you eat it?
Actually, for me, the best way of having Epoisse is on a toasted baguette bread. That's a very good way. Potentially cereals bread as well. But another pairing that I've seen, and they do it in Burgundy, is using gingerbread, because gingerbread bread has this kind of sweet and
spicy.
Yeah, spicy. Well, yeah, spicy, but also it's a firm texture, so it goes well with the creaminess. And again, it's more a contrast pairing, but it does work well with the Petit Berthaut. And when it's down to drinks and to wine, I think then you have to follow the what grow together goes together low.
Yes, we like that one.
Find amazing. Either a white Chablis from Bourgogne or Pinot Noir, different type of.
We have another question for Luke. Have you tried toasted cheese and chocolate?
No, actually, it was one thing that we discussed with Naomi when we on one of our tasting sessions. When we were struggling with the Ossau Iraty, we were thinking, could we change the texture of that by, when you grate Parmesan and you bake it, you can make like a Parmesan crisp.
Ah, yes.
And we were wondering, could we get the Ossau Iraty to do that? But when I put it under the grill, it stays together. It's almost like a Lancashire, the way it kind of melts like fondue style. So it would be fantastic cheese on toast, but I don't think it's going to go into a crisp.
No, but that would be quite a nice pairing, wouldn't it? The Reggiano or the Parmesan crisps with some of the chocolates, a dark chocolate.
Guys, if you do some canapé for Christmas, do not hesitate to share your creation on Instagram with Cheese Lover UK or Valrhona UK Instagram hashtag. We will love to see your creation during this Christmas, what you're doing since this amazing pairing.
Well, maybe we could create a competition, Sasha, and then the best one, we can send them a few cheeky bags of Valrhona chocolate.
Definitely. We'd love to do that.
Okay. Well, I'd like to say thank you to everybody. And can we get Laura and Camille back? I think we can. Can we get them back at their little faces? So thank you so much, Laura and Camille, for translating for us. Thank you, Noemi and Luke, for brilliant presentation and pairings. Thank you, Sasha, for controlling the presentations. I would just like to say that for all of you not studying with the Academy of Cheese, we're still going. We have self-learning, e-learning courses, or we have virtual classroom courses that are done over Zoom or Microsoft Teams or StreamYard, which you can interact with our training partners, bless them. What I must say is we also have Tuesday night is cheese night, which is every Tuesday at 8 p.m, which is over on our YouTube channel. It's free to join. It's just half an hour, and it's Charlie Turnbull, one of our cheese experts, director and training partner at the Academy. Next week, he's doing Spanish cheese. Camille, Spanish cheese. And with the people, with Rupert Linton from Brindisa. But the one that's quite important to everybody, if you're still here, on the 15th of December, we are doing a Tuesday night is cheese night Christmas party. So everybody's to come and join, bring a cheese and a drink, send us photographs, and we'll probably do a competition around it for on the night. It's at 8 p.m. Come and join us. So I'm hoping all you guys, Luke, are you up for it?
Yeah, I'm up for it. And maybe we can see some of the canapes. Yeah,
actually, that's a good idea. So bring along, and the way it works with YouTube, it's only on the chat again. So you'd need to post them to our Instagram or email us. We can send that out over the channels and let you know. But yeah, we all need a little celebration, don't we, after this year?
Absolutely.
But thank you so much all.
Thank you very much. Have a lovely evening.
Bye, girls.
Everyone. Thanks.
Bye.
Au revoir.